Hello and welcome back to Advancing Synapse, where this week we're looking at a thing called Synapse Link. Now, this is technically a feature for CosmosDB, and it's doing a thing called HTAP, which is Hybrid Transactional Analytical Processing, otherwise known as, if you've got a massive OLTP system, slap a dirty grey analytical layer on top of it that allows you to query it without impacting your OLTP. That's what we're looking at. And now the whole thing is a feature built for Synapse, so that your Synapse workspace can query this analytical version of Cosmos without impacting anything, and you can just do real lightning-fast analytical processing on your transactional data. So if you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, but otherwise let's have a quick look at how it works and how we set it up. Okay, so this is how they describe it. This is the website version of it on the blog. You've got your transactional store. Now it's CosmosDB, so it's JSON. And in this case, we're dealing with a SQL API. It's not enabled for all of your APIs yet. But if you're using SQL API, I think if you're using Mongo API as well. So you can be going here doing massive, hugely scalable concurrent reads and writes. Now it's OLTP, that's what it's for. It's for putting behind an application that's having thousands and thousands of people going in and hammering this and updating it and scaling natively. But it's never been very good at analytics. You can never say, take my billions of rows and just aggregate it. Give me these sums, give me these queries. That's not really what it's for. And if you try to do that, you just consume massive amounts of compute. So it gets really expensive. So this thing is a feature you can now enable saying, whenever I make a change to my OLTP, essentially my document collection inside CosmosDB, replicate that over and put that inside a little lake, basically blob storage with Parquet, that's automatically maintained and updated. So I can go and update my records, I can go and change my records, I can go and insert a load of new records. Without me building any ETL, any logic whatsoever, that's just going to go and update a load of Parquet files that are there ready for me to query. And then in Synapse, I can then hook that up and say, connect to that whole pool of Parquet files, and then query it as if it was local data. So really, really cool, getting rid of a whole swathe of work, which is... Now, a little word of warning here, the whole HTAP thing, this hybrid transactional analytical processing, is kind of an evocative statement. Now, when they announced this, they said, the days of warehousing is gone, we don't need to build analytical systems anymore, just do your analytics straight on your operational data. Now, that is an absolute nightmare. Just saying you don't need to shape your data in a way that it makes sense for your business users. You don't need to have centralized business logic, just do it every time. That makes no sense. So yeah, it's not a replacement for a good data platform. It's not a replacement for semantic models and business logic and all of that kind of stuff. But there's been forever, since days gone by, people have tried to do operational reporting from their warehouses. So you've got your operation, you've got OLTP, loads of stuff happening, and then some extract and some transformation, some cleansing, some validation, some shaping, whatever, and it gets into your warehouse. And then people try and do real-time kind of operational, what are my current stock levels from their warehouse? And that doesn't make any sense because it's gone through so many layers to get there. So operational reporting, your kind of what's going on currently, the quick exploration, that kind of stuff, absolutely awesome to be able to do on your OLTP system. So this HTAP thing, it's not a replacement for traditional analytics. It's not a replacement for building your own lake and curating that properly. But it does unlock a huge amount of value and a huge amount of potential for querying your transactional systems directly and not having to try and build all that logic into your warehouse. So it's awesome, but it's not magic. It's not going to replace everything you currently do. So let's have a look at what it is and how it works. So back into Azure, and we're going to need a new CosmosDB. So let's just go and create one. So we go Cosmos. Now I've had this hit and miss. Sometimes it just works straight away. Sometimes it took a little while thinking about things. So let's just see how that works. So I'm creating a new one. I'm going to call this Advancing Synapse Link. See how that works. I've got my choice of APIs. Now again, this is only going to work if I'm using the core one or maybe Mongo. I want the notebooks preview because the fact I can use notebooks inside Cosmos is great. So if you haven't used that, give it a go. And I'll put it close to me so it doesn't cost me the earth. Okay, so I can choose to make it free, which I always like. If you don't already, use free Cosmos. Just have a play. It doesn't cost you anything. So if you're doing this kind of experimentation, getting things working, great. It's not production, I don't want geo redundancy, all the things that cost lots of money. I'm just going to go and create that as is. Okay, so go away, create that. That's going to create me a new Cosmos. Good. Okay, and then there's a couple of things I need to enable in this when I go and do it. One of the things to note is that you can't enable Synapse Link, this separate little inbuilt lake, on an existing container. So you can't just take a load of data and say, actually, just copy this in. You need to create it as a new container currently, but it's in public preview. I'm hoping by the time it's in preview, you can just convert it and say, take this thing, make it into a thing. That's it, because all it's doing is just an extract. Take all my data, compress it, land it as Parquet. Shouldn't be that bad, but currently we have to take an existing one. Still going, going to think about it. And when that's done, we can then create some stuff. So I've created some logic already. So what we're going to do is just create some dummy records and then just try inserting some records and try querying it and see how that works on either side. So let's just wait. I can start talking through the code while we're doing this. So when I've got my thing up and running, I'm going to do a few different things. So first thing first, we're using the Python SDK. So nothing particularly special in here. We're just going to go and read some queries. How easy to see. It's not too bad. So we create an existing database. So I'm going to create a database manually and create a container manually. And when we create that container, I need to tell it, you're using the Analytical Store. I want the Analytical Store enabled for this container. And that's the thing that currently has to be done on a new. Now, I created a little thing just grabbed off the Cosmos GitHub. It's just a dummy record talking about a sale, made up some things. I've got some, it's pulling in the current date time, it's pulling in some random figures. So essentially, I'm just going to generate some data. So we don't need to worry too much about what that code's doing. It's just making an individual object. And then I've got a little loop saying 10 times, 9 times, go in a loop, generate a random object, and in container.create item. So insert this item into my container. So this is going to be really, really simple. Dump this into a notebook, run this, and this is going to just seed it with some sample data. So nothing particularly special happening in there. Okay, still thinking about deploying my CosmosDB, and we can wait for that to happen, or we can go and have a look in Synapse. So when this actually occurs, what we're going to have to do is use it's a special type of Cosmos Link service. So when I'm actually in my studio, which grab that up. So we can go in under my data side. So now one of the options that we've got under connect to external data. Essentially, they are the fancy connections. So we can go and we could do a data lake, or we can do our two different types of Cosmos DB integration. So we could say you're a SQL integration or you're a MongoDB integration. Now, when we do that, it's going to go want to go and ask a lot of questions, and it's going to go and find our Cosmos DB. So this is what's used to create that link to say, actually, you're now part of my Synapse workspace. I'm going to be able to see it. So it can be quite nice in that we'll see it under databases, and it'll be part of our actual kind of data estate that we've got inside our Synapse account. Okay. Okay, right, finally. Took a little while. Okay, so we can go in. We've got our Cosmos DB account, and we can do a few things. So first things first, most importantly, I need to go enable this feature. So we've got that Azure Synapse Link feature, currently status is off. I'm saying, yes, I would like you to use that. Gives me a little bit of information about what that is, what HTAP is, all that kind of stuff. And I can hit enable. Goes off, thinks about it, creates that for me. Okay, so while that's working, we can then go and create a container. So we can hit create container. Do I have the option yet? No, I don't have. There we go. So we're waiting for that option. That's the new thing that we're going to be able to see. As soon as this is enabled, we'll see this Analytical Store. I can now turn it on. So important, that feature needs to be on, needs to be set up before you can actually start creating containers that are set up in this right way. While it's doing that, while it's thinking about it, we can get our notebook ready. So I'm going to go in, going to create a new notebook. And then I can copy over that code I had in my VS Code. So I'm just going to do this, we're going to import CosmosDB. And again, it looks and feels like a normal notebook. It's not quite the same, and like things like the cell outputs, you don't quite get the same. You don't have the full history of things, but generally, just a notebook. think I saw then that it is now enabled, so that'd be good. We can go and use it. And there we go. Okay, so just straight copy that over. Nothing special happening there, but that's ready for us to use. And just to check, yes, okay. So we've now enabled Synapse Link for our CosmosDB. It now has provisioned its own little data lake store, essentially. It's blob storage, AWS Gen 2 that just puts stuff into. I think it's AWS Gen 2. Let's see. Okay, so we can now create our container. So do add a container. Okay, where does it need to go? So I want this to be called online sales. It's got some throughput. I want to call this my sales. I need to give it a partition key. Let's call it sale ID. And then Analytical Store. So I can now turn that on and off. So because I've enabled that feature in my CosmosDB, I can now, for every time I create a container, decide, is this HTAP enabled, yes or no? So that is going to be created. Hit OK. And that's going to go off and create that for me. Now, again, I could do that in a bit of Python script. I could do that via the C# SDK. It's just nice to show you that that option is enabled, so you know that your CosmosDB is working for Synapse Link if you've got that option on your container. Okay, so should now be able to see it. So refresh that. Okay, so we've now got online sales, and we've got our sales container ready to go. That's nice. And if we go to settings, you can see we've now got that analytical storage time to live. So how long does the actual store go? And you know it's a container that's enabled for HTAP if you see that option in there. Okay, so that's good and that's working in our notebook. Oh, CosmosDB. So I've had this before. So if you step away from your notebook and you've not hit save, it just forgets everything you've got there. There's no idea, a bit like Synapse when it has this kind of this working copy and you have to, you've got this session that you're moving around. The moment you leave this notebook, the notebook is wiped. So we have to copy all that in again, which is painful, but not the end of the world. Let's get that in. Okay, and then the final bit, I'll just create that. And then we can run it and see how it goes. All right, okay, so we need our database. So we're saying this is called online sales. And then I've just called that sales to be imaginative. Okay, so I can run that. And that ran. Again, so it's a little bit different than other notebook implementations in that I don't really get any feedback. I could print out and force the output, but you don't get I succeeded. This is how long it took. It just says, yes, I ran. Happy. Ran that, good. And then I can just try and run this down the bottom. So looks like it ran. I'm just gonna hit save so I don't lose that code. If I step off this page without hitting save, I'm gonna lose all that again. Go into items, hit refresh, and there we go. Okay, so I've got some items. These are my randomly generated data. So that notebook, despite the fact it was giving me no output, was actually running, it was doing things. So it's gone and created these 10 records inside my CosmosDB collection. Okay, so I've got CosmosDB. I've enabled my analytical store. So what we can do is go into Synapse and say, can you go and query it? Can you go and talk to CosmosDB properly? So let's step over and again, do what we did earlier. So connect to external data. Give me that choice. I want it to go and talk to CosmosDB. And then we just call this my online sales. Call it HTAP so it's clear. Now, I have sneakily gone in and enabled this interactive authoring. If you don't, it'll allow you to pick your subscription, allow you to pick your CosmosDB. It won't tell you what databases are unless you've enabled that interactive authoring. That is that weird ADF thing again. Online sales. So I've said it's found the database that I've created. And if I hit create, that will go and create that link service. But then it'll also create it as part of the data that I can see. So if I hit refresh over here, then in linked, I've now got CosmosDB. I can see online sales. And then hopefully, there we go. Okay, so let's do a little test just to show you this thing. If I go back into CosmosDB and I create a container that is not enabled for this, so I'm going to create it inside our online sales again. I'm going to call this my, products. And I'm going to turn the analytical store off. So this is a different container. It doesn't have that HTTP ID. So there's two different types of container that you can see when you're using Synapse. The ones that are pure OLTP. It doesn't have that separate store of Parquet. or the ones that are full Parquet, nice, fast, analytical stores, etc., etc. And it differentiates by an icon. So you know what you're connecting to depending on whether you see the HTAP icon or the OLTP icon. Okay, so just to check inside here, we should have our 2 containers now. Okay, so we've got products and sales, one of which, if I go into my settings, doesn't have that analytical time to live, one of which does. So again, that analytical storage time to live only exists if it is analytical store enabled. And then over on the sign up side, if I just come in here and I do another refresh, should be able to see my 2 containers in here. There we go. Okay, so products, that classic just a load of squares, that is OLTP. Sales, a load of squares with some bar charts, or I assume column store compressed, so I've got my different column store segments. That means that is the HTAP enabled. So you'll be able to tell if it's working, has it actually turned on the analytical store, if you see that icon, if you see that HTAP icon when you're in there. Let's try and view it. So we can do a new notebook, get some options. So we can just create a data frame. Give me a data frame, I want to start working, I want to just type some Python, write it to a container, so I want to push data to Cosmos, and again, that's not going to go into HTAP, that's going to talk straight to the OLTP. I can save it as a Hive table, so I can then use it, and I can go streaming. I can just have it stream, so as soon as I insert data, that'll insert into the Parquet and then stream it out to me. So I've got a few different options of what I can do. I think streaming goes via HTAP, but let's see. Load the data frame is the easiest. So that is the straight, I want you, load it up, it's automatically generated this code for me. Advancing Spark is my Spark pool. I want to use an existing Spark pool. I'm just going to hit go so it starts starting my Spark session here. And let's have a look at what it's doing. So it's doing spark.read. So it's got its own format. So it's got a built-in driver for this CosmosDB analytical store called cosmos.olap. It's picking out a linked service and it's picking out a container. I mean, so that's nice. So that means I don't have to do the whole, if I was going from another system, I'd have to go to my key store, bring back my username and password, figure out a managed service, all the connectivity bits. That's baked in. I'm just saying there's already a linked service for it. Just go to this container, bring it back for me. And that brings it in as a data frame. Again, always annoys me that the code just isn't very nice. Go like that, get rid of all those nasty slashes. Okay. So that's now bringing back a data frame. And then as soon as that's a data frame, we can kind of do what we want with it. It's the same as any other data frame. So while that's loading, let's just say, so my data frame is going to be df.ag. So I'm going to want to do an aggregate. So we're going to use a PySpark functions. I'm going to say import, from PySpark.SQL functions start. Okay, so we can see the previous ones now run. So my Spark session started. Now it's actually kicking off that earlier job to show those first 10 rows. There we go. So I've got a load of data back. So that's good. That's working. That's nice. So I can see it's got my data. It's bringing it back. It's bringing back, it's happily working with nested objects. So it can have a struct, it can have nested arrays, it can have the complexities that you get in JSON is being properly represented. It's not going to do anything nasty to it. And then I can start working with it. So yeah, what we're writing down here. Okay, so I want to do an aggregate. I just want to sum. I'm going to sum a split column. And I'm going to sum. What have we got in here? Let's have a look. Total due, I think, makes most sense. Okay, so I'm saying my data frame is replace my data frame with an aggregate version of it, summing the column called total due. Let's do that. And then let's just df.show. And let's see what my results are back. So can I go back and do that? And there we go. Okay, so that's nice. So I've got 12,000 is however much money I've made. My randomly generated records, just got in, added that up. And that worked quite nicely. So that is OLTP, smashing that down into Parquet, being brought back into Synapse without a lot of connectivity, without having to do a load of integrations. Now that I've set that linked service up, I can just bring new stuff in. So let's just go and do a quick test. Let's go back into my CosmosDB. Let's go back into my notebook, which hopefully hasn't forgotten everything. I'm going to make sure that's got the right context, and I'm going to run that again. Oh, no, it didn't run that properly, so let's run that first one, run that second one, run that third one. Okay, So that's gone in, created another load of records. So if we go and have a look at my sales items, okay, so I've got more than 9 records now. I've got a load more records, probably got 18. And I can go in, I can run this again. So we're actually expecting that 12,700 to be somewhat near double. But it's random numbers, so we'll see how it goes. Now, how quickly will it go? So that hasn't gone through yet. So it's going back, having a look at that data, bringing that JSON back again. I'm trying to say, well, how quickly will me making that change to that data actually be reflected in my Spark environment? Now, earlier I was tricking myself going, do I have to go back and recreate that data frame? I don't think I do. I think that'd be madness if I have to. Because it's, again, it's not caching anything, it's just going back to the start. We just make sure that's working. So get my data frame, get my definition, do a show, make sure that's working properly. Okay, so it looks like it's not instantaneous. So it's not going to go back and just give me that immediate real time. But it should be, I don't know, what's my latency? A few minutes, a few seconds. But then I guess the point is I'm not having to do any ETL. I'm not having to do any extraction of data. I'm not having to build routines to poll has it changed and tell it when it should be pushing this data across. It's just coming straight across when I actually need that. So that's just not coming through at all. Okay, good. I'm going to go back and just push some more data through because maybe it hasn't been triggered. So if I just run this again, got even more data in. So you should be able to see even more stuff happening in here. And then go and make sure that's actually coming through. See how much data we've got. Okay, so I don't know whether it wasn't triggering a rebuild because a certain number of records hadn't changed, or whether it's just there's a fairly slow polling. It's not instantaneous. It's not a real-time stream, but it's just an asynchronous stream that's going to get pushed in there and you'll be able to pull reporting from. How real-time is real-time, right? We could connect to the CosmosDB change feed and have it sending each and every individual record and then handle that in a streaming data frame, then land it down into Spark and then have that perfectly real time as much as the latency of that record getting sent across is. Or we can just click this button and then within a minute or two, my users are querying the actual data in the system. So if you had to have it, if you're trying to put this behind like an online store that says, is this still in stock? That's probably not the right thing for it. There is a little bit of latency. But if you're trying to build it so people just throughout the day can just do some operational reporting, what have we sold this morning? How are things going? How's this selling? Then you can just do that directly off it, build out some Spark notebooks, and then start working with it. Now, one of the really cool things is it's not just available in Spark. I think your SQL on demand can also access this stuff. So meaning people writing SQL queries can just hit refresh and then go and query this same data. Now, admittedly, it's not perfect. There are some limitations. So there are some things where it's inferring data types in the Parquet. So if you've written it down as a certain data type and then you change the data that you're sending in, it's going to get some clashes, some collisions. There is some inflexibility if you're trying to use the Analytics Store about how much you can change that object. And one of the points of CosmosDB is it's NoSQL. It's just a giant JSON object. You can just entirely change the structure and schema of it. But that does confuse some of the indexing. It does confuse some of the structure of stuff. And obviously the Parquet files that are created as a result of that are going to be very confused if you're just each time massively changing the object that you're putting in there. So yeah, it's not a magic bullet, but what it does do, it does really well. We can just go in there, we can query the data, we can go and have a look at our data in almost real time. And for most people, a minute or two away is as close to real time as you possibly need, especially because you're not having to build ETL. You're not having to build giant data extraction routines that go through and do all this stuff. So that's what Synapse Link is. Synapse Link is the analytical store behind CosmosDB. Whenever you change your collections, whenever you make any updates to your OLTP store, your big pile of JSON objects, it's going to take that, asynchronously replicate it down to a Parquet store in this analytical store that's baked inside CosmosDB. And Synapse Link is just this linked service that allows you to query that analytical store directly. So you can go in there, build out a load of logic, build out a load of routines, query your transactional database directly without impacting transactional compute. And that should, I guess, kind of the big thing there is the number of analytical systems that we've built where you're told you're only allowed to extract data at night. You can't impact business critical users. People are trying to use that CRM system. You're not allowed to go and query it. This whole thing gets around that. Essentially, you're querying a different store. It's like having a report server that's replicated, but without all of the work that it takes to build a replicated report server to expose your data to your analytical audience. So HTAP is cool. Again, it's not going to replace the entirety of your analytics platform, but if you're currently using CosmosDB, or if you're thinking about where you're going to place an application and it needs that high-scale OLTP, then CosmosDB is a great location for it, especially with the free tier if you're doing a very small application. And the ability now to query it directly from within Synapse is really cool. Now, I want to have a bit of a look and say, can I query that analytical store elsewhere? Can I hook Databricks up to it? Or is it just I have to push it into Synapse and then land it, and then I can query it from other things? I don't know how accessible that analytical store is currently. And I don't know just how easy it is to get around some of those limitations about data types changing and that kind of stuff. Again, we'll see. So, if you think it's going to be useful, if you are super excited and looking forward to using Azure Synapse Link as soon as it comes out, again, it is still in public preview, it's not GA yet, then let us know. Let us know in the comments and let us know what you think. Otherwise, there's some videos for you to go and watch. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel if you are new to us, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.